our industry is about to get devastated by AI. Who are the people who still work in factories, And in
Yeah,
my opinion, that's the folks who are controlling the machines. And
yeah.
so I've always been in charge of innovation in our company. And so I've shifted heavily into AI. In fact, as we were just before we got on this call, I put an AI robot on a programming task, and just now,
Yeah,
it runs through Slack. It's a thing that just came out this week, and it just
awesome.
sent me an update while we're in the call that it's still working on the task, and I'm working on a new concept in development. My specialty has always been developer ergonomics, having folks move really fast, especially like Indian resources, which can be challenging to work with, and figuring out how to make that affordable, attractive resource work well.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. One of your hosts here, Trey King. And today we are very excited to have our guest, Mr. Ryan Weiss from Weiss Software. And we'll be diving into his story a little bit, as well as what his company does. And then, as always, some engaging insights into the technology industry. So make sure to stick around for this one. But without further ado, Ryan, welcome. Thanks for hopping on today.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, Trey. It's my pleasure to be here.
Ryan, if we can kick things off, if you can please to just kind of introduce yourself, and then tell us a bit about your background. A quick snippet of two of your story.
Sure. So I'm in Austin, Texas, and my business is a hybrid offshore development agency. I've been doing that for about 10 years. We're trying to be disruptive with our concept. I'm seeing a few more agencies doing something similar. So it might just be that, most of the time, smart, determined people end up in the same spot with their ideas. So it's probably that kind of thing going on if you're trying to solve the same problems. And so what we're trying to solve is creating a affordable developer experience for people that's flexible, but provides what is commonly called a 10x developer type experience. So
Yeah,
we do that. We do that as a service. So we call it our 10x developer service. And the concept is that instead of being like, if you go out to eat and you go to a steakhouse, you have one waiter that comes over. They have a big control over how well your meal is going to be. If you go to a Brazilian steakhouse, the entire team, you always have a great experience because the entire team looks after you. And that's sort of how our concept is. We basically we service every client as a team. You tell us what the capacity you need is, and whoever the right resource is to do something. If you need DevOps or architecture or design, we have those folks who will jump in and take care of those tasks, and it just provides a nice, consistent experience. So that's where we are right now on the journey. It feels like we've gotten traction with that. People stick with us for a while, and it feels like we're, for the most part, nailing our vision and our values. So.
excellent. Thank you for using that restaurant analogy. That actually makes it helps us to understand a lot better. That's quite a good
Yeah,
one,
instead of all the tech jargon. Yeah.
Ryan. But tell me, how did you like get into this business sector, right? What was it that like initially sparked your interest that made you so passionate about what you're doing?
It's a good question. I kind of stumbled into it. So my background is in software. I've been programming since I was a kid, and I became a software consultant. And when I became a consultant, I was constantly trying to go higher and higher in my career, and that led me to like winning some awards and publishing books and things like that. And that actually landed me building and managing offshore teams for large companies here in Austin, like Dell and Charles Schwab, which was a bit of a surprise to me, and it was something I didn't enjoy. It was
Yeah,
honestly just brutal. It was terrible, um, and um, and so that was kind of how it was, contract after contract, until I met my partner. And then when I met my partner, I actually didn't hate it, and it turned out that to do it well, you needed a person like me here and a person like him there. We saw the value of it. We saw that none of the smaller companies were trying to do it because it was so hard to do right. And then my partner was like, hey, screw these guys, let's go and sell this as our own thing,
Yeah,
and so I was like, sure, and so we've started trying it, and we've been iterating on the concept ever since. So
awesome. Ryan, based on your expertise, what would you say from a market perspective? What would you say is like marketing trends, market trends that you've been picking up lately? What are you aware of?
our industry is about to get devastated by AI. so um, so I figure, who are the people who still work in factories, and in
Yeah,
my opinion, that's the folks who are controlling the machines. And
yeah,
so we've I I've always been in charge of innovation in our company, and so I've shifted heavily into AI. In fact, as we were just before we got on this call, I put an AI robot on a programming task, and just now,
yeah.
yeah, it runs through Slack. It's a thing that just came out this week, and it just
Awesome.
sent me an update while we're in the call that it's still working on the task, and I've created this new. I'm working on a new concept in development. My specialty has always been developer ergonomics, having folks move really fast, especially like Indian resources can be challenging to work with, and figuring out how to make that affordable, attractive resource work well. So I'm applying that to AI now with this concept called documentation driven development. I've actually created a website around that, docdrivendevelopment.com. And I actually have AI too, but I haven't hooked that up yet. And so that's what we're doing on the dev side. And then on the business side, we've got all kinds of stuff we're doing with AI there as well. So
Awesome.
hopefully it'll work. I mean, nobody can predict the future, but I know that AI is going to be a big part of it.
Well, hopefully when you're back on again one day, there'll be another thing you invented that's busy downloading or finishing up whilst we're having our podcast. So
Well, just to clarify, I didn't invent it. I just rented it. so,
good.
so, so
No,
that's
no,
someone else's tool. But yeah, it's amazing how fast everything's changing. I like to tell a lot of dumb jokes, and the one I've been
yeah.
telling a lot lately is when people talk about AI, I'm like, oh yeah, that's like last Tuesday. Everything's moved on from there. Yeah, and I'm usually not joking. It's usually like, yeah, I was using that last week, but I've never seen it move so fast.
Yeah, that I agree. Just having a look at our,
And
our current clients as well. It's so significant at the speed that AI is developing. For the last 2 years, it's next level, right?
yeah, and I'm sure in your industry, I think you were saying that you guys are a marketing or growth company.
Mm.
That's there's just a ton of AI happening in that space right now too, right? It's everywhere,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, definitely. It's a buzzword. And I would say second in line is security. That's definitely one that's a lot of people tend to move into that industry as well. The
Yeah,
well, that market rather. The Tell me, Ryan, you've touched on what your business did, what your business do, earlier. But if you don't mind, can you maybe elaborate? Maybe it might be good to just maybe talk in a case study way, or provide us with an example of, how your business would obviously work with another company, and the value that you basically bring to the table for for that happy client.
sure. So for our 10x developer service, we've um, we've taken over development for a company called CrateJoy. Um, CrateJoy is in the hundreds of millions of GMV. So it's an e-commerce platform that just moves a lot of product. You can buy it. It's really neat if you haven't seen it. It's a subscription gift boxes marketplace, so you can go in and get like a cigar box, and they'll send it to you every month, or soaps or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so they were having a challenge because they had gotten to a point in their growth where they moved from completely custom software to Shopify's custom platform, and they were working with a very expensive US based team. And after they had kind of migrated over, they were looking at kind of just getting more of lowering their cost a bit. And so they had tried some freelancers, they tried some offshore agencies, And they were just finding that with the freelancers, it didn't feel like you had their full attention, and things just weren't very like responsive and reactive. And then with the agencies, there was so much overhead, and nothing would get done. It take like 4 days to get anything done. So
Yeah.
we onboarded them using a process we call DIF, which is document implement fix.
Yeah.
The concept is that we get your software in the same kind of shape that open source is, where with open source, anyone can jump in and start contributing quickly. Most of the time when people have their own software, it's not like that. It'll take like a day or a week to get an environment set up. So we like to start our engagements by helping people get their software to where it's easy to run, which we did for them. And then once we got that going, we were pretty much getting 4 tickets raised a day, like from day one. And then very immediately got into some flows where they had some UX things that popped up. We had our UX folks jump in and take care of that while the dev was going. And then there was architecture stuff not long after that. And, everything just kind of moves really fast and really smooth. And it really helped us validate the concept. It's been over a year and a half with them now, and we're still trucking along. And over the journey, they've needed more capacity, we crank it up for them. They need less, we crank it down. So it's just flexible, affordable, good quality dev capacity is what we do.
Excellent. What a story. If we can maybe just for a moment, like step back and look at just business in general, right? Obviously with your business, you've been doing this for quite some time, being from a founder perspective. Tell me, along this journey of growing your company, what would you say? Can you maybe possibly mention for us like a challenge that you had whilst growing? I think there might be some good nuggets in there for some of our listeners to learn from.
So the concept that we built the company off of was essentially, I knew that word of mouth was really important, and what I had learned from an agency I was working from before, I was listening to some podcasts and interviews that the CEO of that company had done. And he was just saying that the most important thing is that the people you do get projects with like your work, so that you can use that to kind of spin forward, whether it's referrals or case studies or whatever.
Yeah.
So what we did is we tried to quantify that, or I wanted to. And so we introduced our initial values were very client facing. And the first value was that they need to be comfortable with the invoices. So what that basically means is my background was in restaurants, which is why I use a lot of restaurant analogies. But if it doesn't feel right, let us know. We'll look at it and we'll adjust the invoice. Essentially, is how it works. And then our second value is that we don't give anything away for free. So that contradicts the first value, except that every time that we've comped the invoice, we've also changed our processes, like as a core process.
Right.
And so what we did is we created processes. We created core values that allowed us to create processes that evolved over time. And then our third value was that we finish what we start. So that means if we take a contract, we have to finish it. We can't tap out. If we mess up, we have to comp money off the bill. And then what happened in the beginning is we had a few where we were working really hard and on weekends and on vacations and stuff, and we didn't make any money. But we got some really great processes out of them. And then that allowed us to make sure that people liked what we were doing and get referrals and, create our case studies and all of that. So really kind of figuring out what your values are and then aligning those in actionable ways against processes, I think is an effective tool. That at least it was effective for us. We're not a hockey stick company though. So some people might argue differently, but I've definitely enjoyed the company, and it's been good for us and our team.
Having said that, in your opinion, Ryan, what type of mindset would you say is needed to be a successful founder of a company?
Okay, that's a great question.
Yeah. I know it's a loaded one, right?
Well, I'm just thinking about it. I'm in a lot of founder networks, and I talk to a lot of founders. It seems like there's two things that really contribute to it.
Yeah.
For one, it's a really strong desire for folks to kind of do their own thing, and kind of steer your ship, be the captain, clients instead of bosses, customers instead of bosses, that kind of thing. I think
Yeah.
that desire is one thing that drives people. And then the other thing that drives people I've seen is just, I know a lot of people who started their companies because there was a problem they wanted to solve.
Mm.
And so basically, I think the first thing is just being driven. You're either driven or you're not. And then the second thing is either wanting to start a company or wanting to solve a problem. And I think the people who want to solve a problem do better.
Good
You know what
points.
I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. And then, you know, Ron, we a lot of times we got, from the younger viewers, or not necessarily young, but a lot of our listeners have, they get to a place where they want to, uh, you know, go out on their own, start their own thing, had enough of maybe corporate life or whatnot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you have maybe like one or two things that you've learned in your career up until now that you can give them, just some advice on?
As far as getting started,
Yeah,
um, honestly, it's kind of fake it till you make it, right? Nobody's going to take you serious, and you have to have really thick skin. But I mean, a lot of people do it though, so maybe you don't. But I really think just getting out there and trying to do what you're talking about,
yeah,
on some level. And if your services can be, you got to get that first client. So just get the first client, do a good job, and like the things I had talked about earlier. On the
yeah,
product side, they have this concept called minimally viable test. If you Google minimally viable test, you'll see this article. I forget who the guy is. And what he talks about there is a lot of people think you build it and they will come, and they start going out and they start building stuff and they start, hiring developers and doing all this stuff. Minimally viable test is a concept where you go out and you try and test it. So maybe you throw a site up together. I knew a company that did like coupons of nice restaurants. And so they basically like just threw up a site on Squarespace. They got on the phone, they called companies, they said, "Hey, can we get you on?" And they just did everything by hand to test it out and get it going. And they grew it that way before they started hiring dev teams and doing all that stuff. And if you look
yeah.
at the minimally viable test article that's out there, you'll see that he talks about like a few different ways that they've done it. So get your figure out a way to test it quick, and just try and figure out if you can test your assumption before you dive in.
Excellent. All right. You've actually provided a lot of good value points today. To me, it makes sense why you guys are so successful. So I need to thank you for hopping on, man. You provided some golden nuggets here today. And thanks for like I said, jumping on. All the best to you guys going forward. May you only grow from strength to strength. And Ryan, before I let you go, tell me, where can they get hold of you guys?
You can just go to vicesoftware.com,
Yep.
and that's there's a little chat bubble on there, and you can just kind of it'll allow you to book a meeting with me, and so I'd be more than happy to chat with people there. Um, I'm on Twitter and all that, but not really. So
I love that, man.
I mean, I'm on LinkedIn too, but you might get missed there as well. So, I mean,
Excellent. Right. Thanks for
it's just a
hopping
lot of
on.
noise on those channels. You know how it is.
Yeah, I know it is, of course. This was fun. Good to see you.
Hey, nice talking to you, and thanks for having me.
All the best. Bye now.
Bye.